this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
March the 23rd, 2020, a date few of us will forget. The question subsequently is, did we lock down too late? And today the Chief Medical Officer, Sir Chris Whitty, conceded this may have been the case.
We essentially had two different things we were trying to balance. The risk of going too early, in which case you get all the damages from this with actually fairly minimal impact on the epidemic, and the risk of going too late, in which case you get all the problems of the pandemic running away. Now, as we will, I'm sure, come on to, my view is, with the benefit of hindsight, we went a bit too late on the first wave.
Yesterday, the inquiry heard that in his book, the former director of the Wellcome Trust, Sir Jeremy Farrar, had said there were tensions between Sir Chris and his colleague, the Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, over when to lock down.
Did he overstate the position? Or was there a degree of difference between you?
Well, Sir Jeremy, who is a good friend and colleague, had a book to sell, and that made it more exciting, I'm told. My own view was that actually the differences were extremely small.
Like Sir Patrick, Sir Chris was often seen at the Downing Street press conferences during the worst parts of the pandemic. For the second day in a row, that political mantra, we're just following the science, has come up. Yesterday at the inquiry, the Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, said at first he'd welcomed it, then he had quickly changed his mind. Today, Sir Chris has been asked the same question, and he said it became a millstone around their necks, that it blurred the distinction between politics and science. Sir Chris's answers were often careful or nuanced, so questions about the chaos in Downing Street, the oscillations by the Prime Minister in decision-making, were never going to be easily drawn out of him.
Did you observe that? Because, of course, you were there.
I think that the way that Mr. Johnson took decisions was unique to him.
Well, now, if I may interrupt, that's a euphemism, if ever I've heard it. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, he has a quite distinct style, but I think lots of other people have got quite distinct styles, and I do want to, in a sense, take your invitation not to make commentaries on individual politicians.
And returning to lockdown, Sir Chris was asked if ministers had understood early on that this was an option.
Well, it clearly had been used by China, so there was very recent, it was all over the newspapers, politicians were aware that that possibility existed, and indeed it started to be used across Europe, although not that far in advance actually of where we did in the UK, by a matter of really days in general.
Lockdown, he and other scientists have always said, was a political decision. But pressed further, he said there were no good options for dealing with COVID. All the options were very bad, he said. Some were a bit worse, and some were very, very bad.